Okay, awesome. So we are gonna do it. Welcome to another episode of Lead Stronger Longer. I'm your host, Stefana Johnson, and today we are going to be diving into the world of video marketing and storytelling with a true expert in the field. So my guest today is Jimbo Marshall, a highly accomplished video producer, marketing strategist, and entrepreneur. He has helped thousands of coaches and consultants and service providers elevate their video marketing strategies to attract more clients. With over 500 infomercials produced and over 3,000 online entrepreneurs served, Jimbo has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, including Suzanne Evans, Larry Winget, Ali Brown, David Nagel, Marion Morrissey. Amazing. Not only is he a master at crafting high converting videos, but he is also known for his unique blend of humor and marketing expertise, making him one of the most sought after video producers in the biz. Jimbo has shot videos in some of the most extreme locations, including the Great Wall of China and a shark tank in South Africa for the Discovery Channel. Holy smoke. He even co-starred in the hit web series Mr. Deity, later picked up by Sony's online division. Okay, so today we are talking about how you can use video marketing to stand out. And I think leaders need this so much. This is one of the things that I hear about. The viewers will talk about leaders saying, you need to learn how to do videos. You need to learn how to show up on a video and talk instead of just lecturing. So I cannot wait to hear your whole connection on how we work with as leaders to actually connect authentically. So let's dive in.
All
Okay,
right, great.
how we usually start these, every episode I like to get your favorite quote or your favorite mantra. Maybe it's a guiding principle you have. What would yours be?
People by people. At the end of the day,
Mm.
people by people. And so many leaders, so many experts fall into this mindset of my content is more important than me. And I just think that's wrong. I believe everything we all teach, leadership, video marketing, health, everything is available online. We can Google anything. What's missing in a Google search is connection, and that's where video comes in, which really just leads me right back full circle to people by people.
Okay, so you kind of did unpack it a little bit, but I'd like to know how that shows up for you and since you're doing it for someone, and I will also say this, I've taken Jimbo's courses. So I know how it teaches, but I want to have the audience have an experience of understanding this nuance because it is a nuance
Very, very much
and
so.
I think you can pull people by people out a little bit more. And I'd really love you to give an example, a personal example from yourself, as well as maybe what you've seen with other folks you've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. The personal example that I would use as evidence of people buying people is you had mentioned I worked with Suzanne Evans and I worked with her for many years. And we would go around the country sponsoring events, selling a video package where I would go from unknown in the room to all of the sudden people lining up after I got off stage. And we would make a $4,000 offer that you have to fly to South Carolina to come work with me to make your videos time after time. This is a tangible product, by the way, right? You know how a lot of us can sell theory and mindset and all this kind of stuff. This is a tangible product. You're going to get videos done for you, right? It's a done for you thing. Without fail, I would get back to the office Monday, Tuesday. I would start getting phone calls, at least one every time we did a talk. Hey, what did I buy? I've lost my receipt. What did I buy? They had no idea. They bought me. They bought this funny guy who made some good points. on a stage who came across with authority, but also came across as a real person. So I would tell stories about, we had a part in there where we talk about, what holds you back from videos and blah, blah, blah. And people would say, it's my, I don't like what I look like. I need to lose 20 pounds. Always the same thing, right? And it always came down at its core to being seen. Like we have a natural resistance to being seen. Why? Well, I think ultimately we know we're going to be judged. And as much as we try to tell ourselves, we hear from people like I was just watching Mel Robbins last night. No one says it better than her, in my opinion, where she talks about you got to quit your caring. They're going to judge you anyways, right? And I've been saying this forever. They are going to judge you when you make your videos. At least give them the version of yourself that you would want judged, and understand that if your ego is bigger than your mission, it's never going to work. Period. People aren't they're buying you, but they're not buying you to date you. They want what you have to offer. They don't care what you look like. They need you to be real. So here's some realistic logistical tactics that I teach my students. Number one, talk to a person, not at a person. You got to talk to the camera like it's your right fit client, like it's the perfect person that you think, man, if I could just duplicate this client and have 100 of those, this would be a great business. You got to talk to that person. The other thing I say is video, it's a one-way conversation device, but we have to treat it like it's two-way conversation device, meaning you're talking to that camera as if that person on the other end is on the edge of their seat and going, uh-huh, that makes sense. Tell me more. And they're nodding along with you. And at its core, all of this really just is around acting and psychology. You're talking to so that you're in this mindset of like, this is what I would want them to know, right? And it's acting because there's just techniques that you can use. Body language, eye contact, your facial expression. I talk about this idea called psychological tone. And what I mean by that is every word you say is going to have some psychological tone to come with it. Like right now, I'm kind of pleading with you. Hey, will you please get this? Right? That's what I'm saying under my tone. But I could also go, listen, if you don't get this right, it's never going to work. And I don't even have to be that stern. I could say, look, if you don't get this right, it's never going to work. The psychological mixes within those last couple of statements. People aren't hanging on to every word you say. They're hanging on to how you say it and how it makes them feel. And people will never really remember what you taught them, but they'll remember how you made them feel, right? So that's how I approach all of this. And my work with my students, my clients, whatever you want to call it, is really when I get into the role of the director, I'm just like putting you on the spot and I'm going, hey, say that again. I want you to hit this line like this, and here's why. Say something like this. When you get here, slow down a little bit, get a little quieter, and then get right up in their grill because the script, the words call for that kind of emotion. And the truth is we've never had any acting experience. If we don't have a lot of stage experience, video is weird because we're either talking to our computer or we're talking to a phone who gives you no emotions, right? So I've also worked with hundreds, at least I'm sure thousands of speakers, because everybody that's a coach consultant, we speak, right? And they'll always say, man, I don't get worked up when I'm on stage or if I'm in front of a crowd. And I said, yeah, because you're actually getting energetic emotion from that crowd. And that crowd has raised their hands and elected to be there, right? Our video content, we don't have that luxury. So we got to be short, we got to be concise, we got to be engaging, we got to be likable. And ultimately, my message is always you've got to represent their internal cheerleader. You've got to represent something inside of you that makes them go, oh, I can do this. And this is going to be the person that helps me get there.
Oh my gosh, I can't even touch any of that. That's so incredible. All of that. That was just a master class, everyone. And so I hope you get that. We just got a master teaching us a master class. Okay.
Thank you. That's
I
so
have to
kind.
process this for just a moment because I'm tactile, so I have to write these things down. Represent their internal
Cheerleader,
cheerleader, not their critic.
not their critic, because the second they think that you're judgy, it's over. They want to be accepted. And I would argue that 99.999% of every leader, coach, consultant is far from judgmental,
Right.
but it's the psychological tone in which they're delivering things that will dictate how they really are. I worked a lot with attorneys and a lot of divorce attorneys, and in the beginning they would always say, well, I can't be lighthearted about this. And I'm like, why? You're the one that broke up the marriage? Did you have an affair with them? And they laugh, of course. It's like, no, you represent their optimistic future. Nobody's signing up for depression, right? So the other little subtlety and difference here is that I would argue that you cannot be sympathetic. You must be empathetic. Because my sympathy will do nothing for my clients. My empathy will do everything. I understand what you're going through, and I know this is hard, but I also know that taking the proper steps, you can accomplish this, right? There's my little internal cheerleader going, hey, I realize it's tough. I'm not saying any of this is easy. What I am saying is it's possible when you've got the right support, the right guide, right? So that's where I come out on all of this. It's right. It's everything is a big game of psychology. And like it or not, we've got to find a way for us to be likable, engaging, approachable for our right fit client, for our ideal client. And they don't expect us to be perfect. They really don't. Right. So when I work with a lot of like type A personalities and they're like, and I'm like, there's no such thing as perfect. Progress over perfection. Let's just get it done and get it out there, right? Why do I believe video, other than public speaking or, something like this, why do I believe video is the best marketing tool is because it gives that right fit client the opportunity to know, like, and trust you. And it gives that opportunity faster than any other marketing asset that you could have aside from the live speaking, right? And that's why I love it so much.
Okay, so good. This is completely getting me excited because of course I have an acting background and I just
Yeah.
love this and then I love just watching you exude this a variety. We're going on this river of emotions with you and it's so joyful. But there's so many questions I have and so I need to leave that because you already mastered. I mean that I can't that's just I can't touch that. That was perfect. And I want to come back to this question. So I'm gonna ask it now, and then I'll leave it in your mind. And then I need to ask you other things. Okay, but don't answer this one right now. You said you want to empathy, right? So I know that when I'm talking and I imagine speaking to someone, or when I'm speaking to a group and they are assumingly my right fit, and they wanted to show up to be there. There are some that totally resonate, and there are some that do not resonate. And that then I feel like I want to try to please them, and I want to, but I can't. And then I think I did a terrible job. But then I have one person reach out, and they're like, that was the best ever. How can I do whatever? And then I have a handful that are just like, oh, she's too demanding. She's too intense. She's too this, too that, too whatever. So there's that. I would love to address that, but that's more of like what I would hire you as a coach to help me with, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But I can kind of get this in this podcast. So I'm going to swipe that from you after I find out, because I feel like you'll tell us in this journey, after you share with us these pivotal experiences that have led you to right where you are. Because clearly you have an acting background. You clearly have been in the trenches and have an incredible perspective. But how did you get here as this
Uh,
director in video and clearly a master?
well, you are too kind. Thank you so much for that. Take you everywhere I go, so I can just remind myself. Um, so I I do have an acting background. I have a degree in film and theater. And I also ended up teaching school for about 8 years. I taught third grade and middle school. And when I was getting in middle school, I actually taught film production. I developed the program from the bottom up. I still have one of my students that I still hire to this day that I taught him as a sixth, seventh, and eighth grader, and I had a wedding business, and he edited all my weddings and put himself through college. He went to film school. Um, and I treasure that time now because at the time I didn't really know I was learning how to teach. I was just like managing like third graders, right? Um, so here's what happened. I end up, there's a woman named Lisa Sasevich, Queen of Sales Conversion, and she was the first person that changed my life. Like where I was like, oh, what is happening? How I'm feeling something different. And so the story goes, she was in a mastermind with a woman named JJ Virgin, who I knew. And I'd done some video work with JJ Virgin, big fitness person. And Lisa was looking for a video guy for her first event, 2009, I think it was, her first 3-day event. And I got the job, and my job was to go there, record the conference. I have no idea what I'm walking into, and make the DVD set. So Lisa gets to day 2 at her offer. I don't know it's an offer, but I'm in the back of the room watching it. I'm like, this sounds great. This is amazing. Oh my gosh, yes, I want this. Like she's a master. And then she said the price, and I was like, oh, she crazy. I'm like, what is happening? How where I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas, it's like just the fact that I went to school, like you're done learning. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was the first in my family for the graduate degree. And so I'm blown away by this event. She calls me a week later. What do you think? I'm like, oh, blah, blah, it's great. All those things. I think you should join. I said yes, and I immediately started shaking because I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. But what I knew is I'd witnessed something special because she closed like 47 people, like over a $2 million event, right, in 3 days. And I'm just flabbergasted. But I realized in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, if she just put 40 people into this program, 40 plus, surely a couple of them are going to need video. So I went in with this mindset of like, I'm going to sell them some video, right? Well, little did I know it really started my journey in this coaching world and, gave me the honor to work with so many great people. But what I also did is I started to learn the value of having a coach. And I coached with a woman that was one of her diamond level clients, right? This woman had spent $100,000 for the year named Andrea Lee. So special, so smart. And Andrea basically said to me, you need to make video content to teach people how to do video. And I was like, that sounds boring. And she goes, well, make it fun. And I was like, if I do that, I feel like I'm going to like kind of go over the top. So I grew up on Saturday Night Live. Comedy for me is the joy in my life, right? I love laughing and funny stuff. And so what I proceeded to do is I made a video where I taught people how to make testimonials that was a little bit goofy and I was dancing. Um, and she was like, yes, more of this. So then I went even above and beyond and I started creating characters. Um, I bought wigs, I bought outfits, I created backstories for all these people. And one of my guys was Blades Greystone, and he's like a rock and roll mentor, right? He's got long hair, and his backstory is he's an ex-roadie for ELO, and he is a heroin addict. And if he can beat heroin, imagine what he can do for you. Like just bizarre stuff, right? And when I started making that, Suzanne Evans saw that, and she contacted me, and she was like, "We got to do something. You're." Because she has kind of the coaching industry, it can be a little wild and a little bit like, hey, do we have it really this bad, right? Like all those kinds of things. And all good, all respect, of course. But she saw something in me where she was like, we can go make money because you've got the personality and the skill set. When she first contacted me, she had no idea that I could actually make videos. I was just the guy in the videos. But the interesting lesson there that I've learned that I still continue to milk to this day is that going back to the original thing, people by people. And because I'm not just a video guy, I created a persona and I created, philosophies and all these other things. That's what people end up buying when they get me, right? And when I work with a client, it's like, hey, how are we going to bring out your creativity? Hey, I get it. You're a little bit shy. We're going to use that as our advantage. Not everybody needs to be a Jimbo or anybody else. You need to be yourself because what I truly believe, everybody has an audience. The question is, will they step up and own that audience? Will they step up and actually lead? Will they do the hard things and show up when they don't feel like it, right? Will they just be consistent? Because coaching industry is not easy. On the outset, it's like, oh, this is great. Tell people what to do. Sign me up. Well, you got to acquire clients. You've got to have the systems. You got to get the results. You've got to deal with the people that don't want to do what you say, even though you're the expert. Now all of a sudden they know what they should do. Come on, calm down. Um, so it really, that whole thing, when I started doing this little show, I called it Can I Get a Transformation, right? I had a theme song, had all these characters. It got Suzanne's attention, and then we formed this business called Hell Yeah Studios. That's where I would sell from the stage. And that really kind of launched it, right? But in that meantime, I was constantly doing creative projects because that's what makes me happy. If I can make something and have some fun with it, that's my true sweet spot, right? So all of this kind of ties into that other question you were talking about, half the audience is into me and half the audience is not. I'm going to tell you, if that is true, you are awesome because you're doing exactly what you should be doing, polarizing, splitting the room in half. When you create fans, you make more money and you have more impact. Period. If you're vanilla, if you're just middle of the road, no one's gonna like you a lot. No one's gonna I don't like her a lot, right? They're all gonna be just like, yeah, it's okay. And those are the people that don't generally make the sales. If you look at all of our gurus, have you ever heard of the President of the United States? This guy tends to be a little bit polarizing. Whether you like him or not, you might can pick up where I'm going with this. It doesn't matter. The polarization creates the following. Now, I'm not suggesting you go that extreme, but I like the idea that some people are like, ooh, she's too much for me. Good. Ooh, she's too strict for me. Good. Those are not your right people because the worst thing that happens is you sign those people on and then they don't do the work and then they go around complaining that your stuff doesn't work. Meanwhile, they didn't do it. Like it's ludicrous, right?
I'm literally like, there's explosive. Oh my goodness. Just that was So
You're
spot
so
on. And
right.
what's interesting, the polarization piece.
Yeah.
I think there's so many of us who don't want to
No,
polarize and
no.
we avoid it and we feel it's just not, it's bad. We don't want to do that. We don't want to create that. We want everybody to be happy,
We're people
everybody to get along.
pleasers. We're
What?
people pleasers. We're people
People
pleasers.
pleasers.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it's
a people
ineffective.
pleaser at
Leaders cannot
heart.
do that.
Yeah, I'm a people pleaser at heart. And the
Mm.
reality is, it's kind of like if you have children, I always say, if I hear a parent go, "Oh, I've got a 13-year-old and we're best friends," and I'm like, "Well, then you're a terrible parent." They're walking all over you. Like, that is not the way it works. Like, tell me in 10 years how good of friends you were, right? That this 13-year-old is always looking out for mom. They don't have that capacity, right? Our job as leaders, whether it be a video leader, a health coach, a leader for, organizations, we have to put people in a point where they feel some discomfort, where they feel the uneasiness. Otherwise, there's zero growth. I run these these like video programs, and I end up attracting a lot of people that have not had experience acting and not had experience on camera. And I'm fine with that. I love it because I know I can share with them the process. But even just this morning, I had a woman, and bless her heart, great attitude. She could not act her way out of a wet paper bag. I mean, it was painful, but lovingly and with some jokes, keep building her up and building her up. So by the end, this sparkle in her eye where she knew she was getting there. And I'm telling her, I'm like, this is just like everything else. It is a skill set. You rehearse to get better. You don't watch a football game or a basketball game and those guys just go out and show up on the court. They've spent all week practicing that shot, practicing that play. So, another thing I have to say, people also think like somehow I should be good at this. But if you've never had the acting experience, it's weird, especially with a camera, because you're acting into something that has no feeling or emotion. It gives you nothing. And one of the exercises I'll tell people is like, hey, pick up objects around the house and just start talking to them. Hey there, it's Jimbo Marshall. One of the things I know about video is it can be confusing and overwhelming. This will help you to start talking to something, not at it. You also feel a little silly. Your family might make fun of you. But if you just start talking to things and really like put your emotional energy into it, it breaks you of this camera phobia, I believe,
Oh,
right?
I think that's so valuable. And even just that exercise, because I will share with my clients to do imagination exercises because I need them to think differently and have possibility thinking instead of really being so straight. So that was an awesome exercise. I'm curious as to what your biggest professional or personal challenge has been, because it's not like you all of a sudden you're just like, and yes, I got the story with Lisa and that's awesome.
Mhm.
But has there been a challenge, a pretty significant one, because we learn by listening to
Yeah,
others' challenges, and how
100%.
did it shape you to be who you
Yeah.
are today? This confident, clearly competent, clearly, I know, but the truth is you are, sorry, but that's the truth. You're a freaking master. Do you have a story for us like that?
Yeah, I went to San Diego State Graduate School. I got a couple of them that I think are relevant and vulnerable and might help. I went to San Diego State Graduate School with the intention of getting a master's in film. Looking back, I really made that move because I was scared to go to the real world and I knew that education, you're safe, right? Um, and I wanted to make a feature film. And then, when you're going in a master's program, you have to have a chair or something like that, right? Somebody has to like approve it. And nobody would approve the film because it hadn't been done, right? And I was like, well, I'm gonna do it, right? So I took all of my student loan money and I made a film that I could not get sold. And we got close. This was like maybe 93, 94. There was a movie called Clerks with Kevin Smith. It had just came out when we were shooting. And so I was really optimistic and we got close. We talked to some distributors and we got super close, but it just didn't work out. So I was really like, what do I do now? Because I didn't go to film school to be like a grip or, one of those technical type people. And hats off to them. I mean, I can't do that. Film is a team effort for sure. But that just wasn't going to be my role. I'm not great. I couldn't roll up the sound cable in film class. Like I have all these like things where I'm like, I'm not good at that, right? Probably could have gotten it if I would have just tried it, but it just didn't interest me. So I didn't know what to do. I ended up school teaching for 8 years, and that got me a little bit of bump because I knew I was doing something, right? It felt good. Um, and then I just missed being creative so much. And again, this is I'm getting into my late 20s here. I'm 56. I just missed being creative so much. And so that's when I decided to create a wedding video business. So I've shot 800,000 weddings maybe. Man, I've had some wedding chicken, let me tell you that. But I loved it in the beginning because I was creating something and I just love creating, right? And then I ended up on, like you mentioned, it's all about who you know in life a lot of times, right? So a buddy of mine from high school ends up working for the Discovery Channel, and I end up getting a gig where I'm getting sent to South Africa, and I'm in Nelson Mandela's home, and I'm in a Shark Tank, and scared to death because my job is to get the footage of the shark. Meanwhile, I'm scared of the shark. Like scared of the shark. And we're in this cage and the seas are roughs, right? This is like in Shark Alley or whatever it's called, where all the great whites are. And then the next week you're on Serengeti and you're filming lions and stuff. Um, and that was all exciting, but I hadn't really done anything for myself, like fulfilling. And then I met Lisa and I had a few years where I'm like, okay, this is great. This is awesome. And then I met Suzanne and I learned so much from Suzanne. And then I got to the point where I'm like, all right, I got it. I got to do something else. And I got hired by a law firm coaching company called, it doesn't matter, huge company, great company. And I got fired in September of 2023. And I did not see it coming. And so it's been a little bit over a year. And out of the gate, I picked it up really well and started selling a bunch of stuff. And I worked with Sage Event Management. If you know Barry Baumgartner, she's like the person behind like a Tony Robbins, Dean Graciosi, Jeff Walker, Amy Porterfield, Stu McLaren, Russell Brunson. They're in Vegas this week. I mean, she is a big, big deal. And they hired me to do some creative stuff. So I got to puppets and soap opera stuff, fun projects, super fun where I'm at. But then all of a sudden that kind of dried up and I got depressed again. I'm pretty manic, if I'm being honest. Like I run hot and cold, right? And I've got to stay motivated. I'm learning so much about myself right now that I've got to be goal oriented, right? So even, how I met you is I started running these webinars where I was like, oh, I finally feel confident that I could teach somebody these 3 steps on how to make this content. And I've never been able to do that because the technology didn't exist where it was easy enough, right? With the editing, because it would always be the editing where people would be like, oh, that's confusing, right? So I kind of sell this idea of like, hey, if you can click and drag, I can show you how to edit video. It's not as complicated as you think, right? Um, so, anyways, I don't know if I'm answering the question or if I'm divulging too much. You kind of get everything with me. I- I'm I'm focused now, and if somebody would hear this and just be inspired by this, it would be wonderful. I'm now just focused on building this for me. I've built it for a lot of people, and I've made a lot of people a lot of money. Like a lot of money. In my videos, I'm confident have sold at least over $30 million in coaching services over the years. Like Lisa and Suzanne alone would hit that mark, right? Because they're heavy hitters. Um, but I'm doing it for me right now. And I think I'm a slow learner, and the fact that it's taken me such a long time to just put it all in on Jimbo, right? And I think at this point, I'm going to be happy with whatever result comes, right? I'm going to do my first 3-day event this year, just coming up in a couple of months. So I'm super excited because, that webinar that you've I try to share this with people. I'm all over the place, but I share this with people as well. I've done that webinar live like 30 times, probably 33 times or so. Taught me so much, like just the repetition, like the muscle of it. I've manipulated the talk, right. When I first started doing it, I was coming at like an hour and a half, then I got to hour and 20, an hour 10, then I sponsor event, right? So I have to pay, for the sponsorship. And basically the sponsorship states that, hey, if you go over 50 minutes, it's $50 a minute. And I'm like, oh, I got to get that thing down, right? And that also forced me to sell a lower ticket item, which made me get creative, which also allowed me to get with a lot of clients and get immediate feedback, right? So I have this philosophy of like, sell fast, be nice, tell them up front it's not going to be perfect and you're going to make it right. And I believe if you come at it with that energy, no client's going to get mad at when you go long or you miss something, right? If you come at it from this approach of like, hey, I know I can help you. And I may take 5 steps to get there instead of 3, but if you'll be patient with me and always give me the benefit of the doubt, I learned this from Lisa. She would always say, come to us in partnership. And I was like, so beautiful, right? Come to us in partnership. We want you to succeed, right? So please approach us, any situation you're having with that in mind, and we'll get there together because we're not going to quit on you, right? And so here I am today. And yeah, I'm
Oh
thrilled.
my goodness. So
Too
much.
much? Was it too much?
Never, never for me, never. I mean, I want to respect your time because I said 30 minutes,
No,
but
no,
we
I
could
got,
talk forever.
yeah,
Everything I heard and saw with you is that you're humble within yourself to continue to evolve and grow and stay in that energy of creating because creation is evolving and allowing. You said self-asked,
I said what?
self-asked. I could, I thought you were going to say half-assed, but you'd self something when you were describing the 3 things that you just right before when you were talking about how um, if you'll just allow me, I might make a mistake, but
Oh yeah,
was
yeah.
that self-asked?
No, I must have said something wrong.
Now I have to go and rewind
Oh
it back.
no, here's what it was. Sell fast.
Sell fast.
Sell fast.
Sell fast.
Hmm.
Okay, we have to unpack that because then that triggers a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But I want to be really clear because some of the things you said apply so directly to somebody who needs to be leading stronger longer.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that is come to me in partnership. I
Yeah.
want you to succeed. And then exactly what you said at the very beginning, people,
Bye, people.
people, by
Bye.
people. Now, I might put something else in there because I do have issues around sales. I don't want to sell. I want to give everything to everybody. I just want to give, 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 give. But
Oh,
that's a piece. So sell fast. Unpack that a little bit, and then
yeah.
I'll get on to the last 2 questions.
So what I mean by sell fast, and again, this was my influence with being with Suzanne Evans for sure. Um, we would sell a program and then build it. And the idea is we want to be able to sell the concept because if we try to go build, and I hear this all the time from people, I'm building this course, I'm going to make all these videos. And my first question is, have you sold it? No. How do you know people want it? Like, how do you know, right? And then it inevitably is like, well, because all have objections, right? And they'll just say, well, this, that, or the other. And I want it all done so that they can go through these modules and how long are the modules? About 15 minutes. And I'm like, do you know the stats on people that buy courses and don't finish them? Like the worst thing you can do is have a course, a bunch of people buy it, and then not do anything with the course. Because then you've got a bunch of people at best that are indifferent to you, at worst are complaining about you. right? So you have to prove concept. So I always like sell fast. So in November, when I sold my first group program, I wasn't necessarily, I sold it for 497. I wasn't selling it to make money. My more of my bread and butter would come from, hey, we're going to work together. I'm going to fly out to you. I'm going to produce videos over the couple days. We're going to be in a 6 month retainer, right? Those are bigger, higher ticket contracts. And there's a lot of deliverables, a lot of work, a lot of one-on-one stuff, but I was trying to get to that group level. So I wasn't creating this program to, make a lot of money. I was created that program just to prove concept to myself. Would people buy this? And then I had a whole nother issue because I had no curriculum. I literally had the three things that I taught on the webinar that I was now going to do over an extended period of time, right? So you get group sessions with me where we're walking through each one of those steps. Make sense? So the idea there is I am making it up as I go along. And I'm literally joking about that, telling them, because the other thing I know, they bought me and I know I'm good at this stuff. So I'm not worried about my skill set. And I'm also understanding that every human being is going to bring their perspective, their experience into this work, just like a leadership coach would have, right? You cannot control how they come into you. So I'm not going to be so tied to this. It has to go through this 5 step module. Now, I love processes. I love steps and formulas because they help us, right? But I also believe in the beginning, and again, these kind of programs would attract, people that are just getting started, or I have people that have had brick and mortar type, psychology practices that are now trying to get into more of an online space, right? What's the difference there? And that's where I'm saying, like, hey, if you're not starving, meaning are eating off of your psychology practice, sell it for $89. Who cares about the money you're making? Get your proof of concept, get used to selling. And I will give credit to Barry Baumgartner here, and she credits somebody else. I forget who it is, but it's such a perfect saying in the coaching world. Um, when people pay, they pay attention. Right? So to your point, you want to give it all away. Yeah, so do I. But the problem is we could stand on the street corners, free this, free this, free this, and nobody's gonna blink an eyelash because they've got no skin in the game. They've got nothing in there. They haven't paid, so they don't pay attention, right? So I struggle with sales as well. I'm not like, people will get on a call with me, a sales call, if you will, and I'll lay out exactly how I would do it. And I literally say, and if you go hire somebody else, use these principles. I want you to be successful. If you follow this, because the truth is most video people, they don't have the communication that I would have. So you need to educate that vendor on what you're trying to accomplish, right? Because you can certainly get it cheaper, right? There's always a cheaper service. We can't ever go, I'm going to be the lowest price, right? So I always just, it's funny because it's even one of the videos that I always want my clients to make is, hey, if I was going to hire a leadership coach, here's what I would look for. You tell people what to look for, right? These qualifications, this level of experience, this level of connection of how you feel, right? Meanwhile, all those things you're describing are, in fact, you, right? But what a way to be committed. This is Lisa Sasevich, committed but not attached. I'm committed to giving you everything you need in order to move forward. I'm not attached to the outcome. I cannot be, because that's something I cannot control. I can only control my commitment to you, right? And when we tell people how to hire our service provider, one, now we're being a cheerleader for our industry, which awesome, great. We want to be able to speak up for our industry. This was specific in lawyers, right? Because nobody has, for the most part, we don't have favorable opinions of attorneys, right? So it'd be like, hey, be the bright spot, be the one that's like, whoa, that person's an attorney. They seem normal, right? How do we make this person not seem like an attorney? That was always the goal, right? But at the end of the day, I also believe your biggest competition as a leadership coach is not necessarily another leadership coach. Your biggest competition is inaction on that person's part.
Mm,
Like they don't end up moving forward with anybody, right?
right.
It's not just you. So that's why I love a good follow-up plan because if they're
Mm,
going to buy, if they're going to engage, and you just keep following up, it would naturally be you, especially if you're doing it with video, because they will just feel like they know you because they've seen enough video. And we don't distinguish between in-person and video at a certain point, right?
wow. This has been incredible. Whoa, what an incredible masterclass right here. Plus psychological coaching. I feel completely liberated. I'm
You are
ready
so
to go
that.
sell fast. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Self-awareness, make the mistakes, right?
right.
Get the
Yeah,
results, right?
that's genius. It's very important. I think every coach needs to know that and course creator, absolutely. Okay, so
Yeah.
I am going to get to this point because I always love asking the question of your favorite books. What book or books, up to
Yeah.
three, have really profoundly maybe impacted how you live, how you
Yeah.
lead? Doesn't have to be a video book, but it can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Okay. This may or may not be a shocker. I am not a reader. I really don't read a lot of stuff. I used to be embarrassed by that, and now I'm like, what difference does it make? I don't read. I listen to a lot of things, and I'll tell you some of the things recently because I just go from audiobook to audiobook, right? Um, the one I'm in right now that I should have gotten a long time ago is Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Now, unfortunately, it's not read by him, and I always just appreciate when the author reads a book. Um, So, but I'm probably like 50 minutes left of that, and it's outstanding. If you think I said anything good here, go listen to that for sure. It's really, he really, the whole book is really from this perspective of you becoming the expert, right? And that's my confidence today has come from many years of just assuming the role. Lisa Sasevich says you got to assume the throne. Nobody's going to knock on your door and say, "Hey, here's your crown. We're ready for you to be the queen." You got to assume the throne. It's such a great thing, right? So I love that. There was another one who I really loved that I was way into last year. Two different ones. Um, is it called 10x is better than 2x? It's Benjamin Hardy. Oh, it's fantastic. And he does that book, he does that read with one of the kings of coaches, and I cannot think of his name. It's not Dan Kennedy, but it's another guy that's up on that in that same level, right? Of like fatherhood of modern marketing, or it's Dan Sullivan, maybe. Dan Sullivan. That book is awesome. And then the other one that I've got on my list to listen to again. Also, Lisa Sasevich, she has Meant for More, which is really good. Maybe I am a reader because now that I'm thinking about it, Suzanne Evans has a book called The Way You Do Anything is the Way You Do Everything. It's fantastic. It's such a visual read. Um, but then the book I'm going to be coming back to after I finish Expert Secrets that I've already listened to twice is The Big Leap. I think it's Gay Hendricks. That's correct, right? I mean, just this idea of, oh, it's so like you have the zone of confidence and the zone of excellence and then the zone of genius, I think it goes. And to try to be in that zone of genius is just it's an amazing aspiration. I feel like I'm always in my zone of excellence, sometimes in the competence, but my zone of genius, and maybe this is a mindset story I'm telling myself, my my zone of genius generally requires money for a production, right? Because we're building sets. I'm having to hire, a director of photography so that we can have the lighting dialed in. I'm having to have puppets made. I'm paying actors, right? I'm hiring an artist to do background. work, stuff like that, where you really sell the whole idea, right? So if I could stay there all the time, I would. I just haven't quite found a way to like, hey, create a project to create a project to create a project. Maybe that's the next chapter of my being, right? The more I just proclaim and get myself out there, and keep proving to people that, hey, I can do this and we can get results with it. It's not for everybody. Like when I first, consult with clients, I always try to go, all right, where's our video strategy now? We don't want to try to get creative and cute until we get basics in and try to really get all low hanging fruit levels done, right? So that people know who you are, they know what you stand for, they know what you can offer. We present you as an expert. We want you to use your personality and all of the language, and that might come with whatever it is you bring, but we don't need to spend a lot of money on the production because there's going to be no ROI at that point, right? Anyways, too much there.
Never again, not too much. I wanted to keep my mouth shut because you're just sharing such gold and such useful information if we use it.
Yeah.
That's the key for sure. I mean, there's things, of course, that I would love to pull apart and like discuss and
Yeah.
all of that, but let's just leave it at this.
Okay.
Audio books totally count.
Okay, good.
Yes, 100,000%. Yes, exactly. So that's awesome. Great recommendations. And how can our listeners connect with you or follow your work or hire you?
Yeah, they can go to jimbomarshall.com, right? That's my website where you have a basic contact enter form kind of a thing. Um, I'm not as big as I want to be, should be on social media. I'm not like that middle-aged guy that's like, social media is like, great, you had something for dinner. Cool. Thanks, Becky. I'm trying to get better at it, but I found a lot of people in my age range, right? That Gen X is like, we're just not so comfortable on Facebook and stuff. So I am on Facebook. I've got a couple things, one in my business, Jimbo Marshall, and one is my personal Jimbo Marshall. I'm on YouTube as the real Jimbo Marshall. If you search Jimbo Marshall in Google, it's going to be a pretty interesting result because of my acting background with Mr. Deity. There's a lot of stuff that comes up like that. Like that's probably how I was most known for a while by that show because we had a big cult following. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting Google search when you come up for that, but you can always DM me or just reach out, say hello. And then I've got free resources, right? I'm continuously doing webinars. I'm in the middle of developing another lead magnet right now. So I've got a few lead magnets, resources, right, to help people get going.
They are
Um,
very useful resources.
wow, thank you.
Absolutely. That video class that you shared was priceless.
Here.
So useful again. Incredible. And I
And
am,
I'm going to be doing a 3-day event this year. So coming up in just a
woohoo!
month,
That's very
3 days
exciting.
of Jimbo, all you can take.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. And folks, if you loved this episode as much as I have, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Lead Stronger Longer. And in the comments, I want to hear your biggest takeaways. Make sure you follow Jimbo Marshall and check out his work. We'll have those in the links. And thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, lead stronger, longer. See you next time.
Thank you.